If I can do this without flinging it all over. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills. Our minister is Reverend Bob Janis-Dillon. I am Kathy Atwell, your worship associate for this morning. A big welcome to everyone, wherever you are, here in the sanctuary, via Zoom, be it your living room, your bedroom, your porch, your garage, your garden, your car. We are glad you are here. Do we have any guests this morning? Anyone new? Could you hold your hand up if you're new? Oh, wonderful. Okay, we've got one. Mary, she's right over here if you want to talk to her. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious faith that carries no creed and welcomes all seekers. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in life's journey, you are welcome here. We are guided by a set of principles and written sources that encompass the many ways we come to know and understand the world, the universe, and the divide. And I will slow down. Whew. Our principles are important to us at UU Catskills, and we live our values on a daily basis. We affirm that Black Lives Matter. We are a welcoming congregation for the LGBTQ+ community. We are a congressional affiliate of the Ulster Immigration Defense Network. We are an active voice in the effort to address climate change. And we acknowledge that our sanctuary is built on the Lenape and Nation's ancestral land. If you'd like to contact someone at the UU Catskills, for those people on Zoom, I think there may be a screen. If you're a visitor and like to be added to our mailing list, you can put your name and talk with Mary in the back and she'll get you on our mailing list. Community circles connect members with others that live in their local community. There are 8 different circles who meet monthly in person or online through Zoom. Again, if you'd like to get in touch with one of the circles in your area, please contact the office administrator. Assisting with today's service is Catherine Kastner and Bruce Wilde. After the service, please stay for our breakout rooms, a virtual coffee, and then y'all are here. We have coffee and cookies and some other goodies over. Please stay and join us for that. Okay. Just a quick housekeeping. If someone, either young or old, feels like it is a little too much noise or overstimuli, Reverend Bob has opened his office, and you're welcome to sit there and listen to the service It is a quiet room, so that will be available for an in-service person, either little ones or bigger ones who are a bit overwhelmed. Our prelude this morning is how do you say? Miserere by G. Valdi, arranged by Fernanda Joseph Lamotte, I should have practiced, played by Catherine Calaban. Okay.
Good morning. I hope you had the rare privilege of being greeted by the trees this morning, weren't they? They're in magnificent color. It's so good and luxurious to have the trees in such beautiful color this morning. And welcome, whether you're joining us, as Kathy says, wherever you are or in this space, we welcome you with the warmth of this community. And it is so good to be together. And thank you for the music. Ferdinand Joseph Lamotte, just a little note, is also known by his nom de plume, Jelly Roll Morton. And he claimed to invent jazz, which his music biographers say might be a slight exaggeration. But if you claim to invent jazz and biographers say that's a slight exaggeration, you're a pretty significant figure in the history of the world. So it's really great. Thank you for bringing Ferdinand Lamotte, Jelly Roll Morton into our space this morning. We'll light our chalice this morning with words by the Reverend Betts Weineke. May this flame, symbol of transformation since time began, fire our curiosity, strengthen our wills, and sustain our courage as we seek what is good within and around us. And I invite you to recite together, if you wish, our unison affirmation. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love to all living beings. May we know once again that we are not isolated but connected in wonder and joy to mystery and miracle, in the universe, in this community, and in each other. By the way, our chalice we're using electronic today. We have solved a mystery, nothing like a good Halloween mystery, because we were discovering that our masks that we all wear would go like from white to dark gray in the course of an hour, and it was the flames. So we're looking for ways of doing it that don't lead to air pollution. So thank you for supplying that, chalice. We'll begin with a hymn of praise in the midst of autumn. Hymn number 322 in the gray hymnals, or if you're watching at home, the lyrics will be on the screen. Thanks be for these. Let us sing together. So it's always a significant time, but this is a significant time. Does anybody know what tomorrow is? Nobody knows? Halloween or Samhain or Monday, depending on. And then it's all Souls Day and All Saints Day. But Halloween is tomorrow, and it's a very exciting time, I know. And as is a tradition, I mean, at Halloween, I have to tell you a really scary, spooky, bone-tinglingly frightened story. So I don't know how many of you might know the story of the 3 little pigs. Very scary. Do any of you know this story? You may not know all of it. Have you ever wondered why the pigs are talking? Right? Have you ever seen a talking pig? No. So that's a funny thing. So they don't always tell the whole story, because why are the pigs talking pigs, right? Well, it so happened that they were talking pigs because somebody was littering. Should never litter, right? And they couldn't get a bottle open, and they threw it into the pig's sty where these 3 little pigs lived, and they were happy little pigs. Life was pretty good. There was a wolf around that was kind of annoying and difficult, this wolf. But they were all right, and but then they rubbed against this bottle, which was exactly the right move, because a genie came out.
And he said to, first of all, he granted them the power of speech so that they could make their wishes. And then the genie said, well, he wasn't used to giving wishes to pigs, but they get 3 wishes too. But they had to divide them up amongst themselves. So the pigs were ready for this, because even though pigs don't talk the way we talk, they're very, very smart. And they had thought this all through. And the first pig said, well, I wish for riches, because pigs don't often get rich, but he saw enough human beings to see there was something rich. So he wished for all the riches that he could possibly want. And he got all of this money and stuff. And the genie said, sure. And the second pig said, well, I wish for fame, to be renowned, to have loads of friends, to be super popular. The genie said, okay. And that was the second pig. And the third pig said, I think I wish for courage. Part of it was the third pig was a little scared by that wolf sometimes, and thought courage would be a good thing to have around. And so the genie said, okay, that you get courage. So they had their 3 wishes. And the first pig, who had all this wealth and money and riches, well, things went really well for this pig. Had everything you could want, fancy meals, and went on helicopter rides. Have you ever seen a pig on a helicopter? It's a sight, let me tell you. And he lived quite the life, and he never had to worry about the wolf, because he had all of the gadgets that he could want, and weapons and all other things that money could buy, and kept the wolf at bay. And the second little pig, well, was very famous and was the toast of the Upper West Side, and everybody admired this pig. And if the wolf came up, well, all his friends would get in the way, or he could get security guards or anything. So that they didn't have to worry about the wolf. And the third pig, well, actually, the wolf was still kind of a problem with courage, because courage doesn't take everything away right away. And the pig was starting to second guess whether this was such a good decision, because still had to deal with the wolf. And he found even that he was still a little bit afraid, because courage doesn't always take all your fear away. But what it did is, when he was feeling afraid of the pig, he thought, you know what, I can do something about this. And so he learned how to deal with the pig, and how to run away when it was time to run away, and how to protect himself, and all that kind of stuff. So then it came time to build their house. Now this is the bit you might know about the 3 pigs' houses. And the first pig's house, well, this pig had learned the value of money. So he was going to build a gigantic house. But then a straw merchant came, and he could get straw at like a cut right price. And he thought, why spend all that money on bricks and mortar? And he got a straw house, and he said, and then I can have more fancy meals and more helicopter rides. So he had a straw house, and then the wolf came. You know what the wolf said? The wolf said, I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. And the little pig said, not by the hair of my little chin chin. And the wolf huffed and puffed and blew the first little pig's house in. And the little pig ran away. And they had been not in touch with his brothers, because he was too busy living the life of wealth and all this kind of stuff. So he ran to the famous brother. Now the famous brother had built a house too. And he had built a house, and he thought he would build this magnificent house. But then when he built the walls, he said, nobody can see me, and I need to see all my friends and be popular and famous. So he built a house of sticks, so he could see through and see everybody. But it's not the best thing to build a house of. And the wolf came up, and you know what the wolf said? But the 2 pigs said, I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. And the pig said, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. But the wolf huffed and puffed and blew Piggy's house in. So both little piggies ran to the third little piggy, who they hadn't seen in ages. And when they were running, they thought, I missed that, my brother pig. I should have hung out more often. But they went to the third little pig, who had courage. And the little pig, courage, like I said, didn't keep the wolf at bay the whole time. But the pig had learned a few things, and learned that, well, a good thing to keep wolves at bay is a nice brick house. So the pig had built a nice brick house, and had also learned it's good to have people around, because people sometimes give us courage, or pigs. And said to the other 2 pigs, you're welcome in anytime. It's great to see you again. So they all came in, and then the wolf said, I'll huff and I'll puff, and I'll blow your house in. And the pig said, not by the hair of my chinny chin chin. And the wolf huffed and puffed, but then got tired out and could not blow the house in. So all the pigs lived happily ever after. And the wolf Well, the wolf just had to have a change of plans and figure out what life was going to be like now that he couldn't harass those little piggies. So he turned over a new leaf, but that's another story. Anyway, it's a story of courage. Courage doesn't always get you everything that you want right away. Sometimes it doesn't always accomplish everything. It's a really good thing to have courage in your heart, because then you know you can do things. And the third little pig knew that he could deal with the wolf. Even if the wolf was challenging, he knew that he could deal. And he also knew that he could help those in need, his two brothers who had gotten themselves into a little bit of trouble. So that's his story, but we have another thing that we're going to do together here, because after, as I said, after Halloween is All Souls Day. And All Souls Day in a lot of different cultures is an opportunity, or is a time when people think about those who have died. And maybe there's somebody in your life, a grandmother, great-grandmother, somebody close to you that has died, but it still feels really close to you sometimes. It feels still a part of your life. So what we're going to do, which is something that we've done in this congregation before, is I'm going to invite people who are in this space to bring, and some people have already done this, thank you, to bring some things onto our remembrance table as a way of remembering those who we have lost. Those of you who are on Zoom, you might, if you have something near you, because you might be at home, that's a remembrance, you might hold it close to you, and you could even hold it up to the camera if you wish to show it to the others on Zoom. And it's a way of thinking, we're all thinking of those close to us. Now, if you haven't brought anything, and I didn't bring anything, you don't have to bring anything, or if you'd like to participate, you're participating in spirit already, but if you'd like to participate bodily, you can come up to the table. We're not saying anything this time, we're just doing it silently. But you can just knock on the table as a way of saying, I'm thinking of you. So if you want to come up and give the table a little knock for whoever you're thinking of. So we're going to gather up all these mementos in body and spirit and be thinking of those people who are on our hearts and our minds on this holy time. Now we have other parts of this ritual. One more part that we'll do right now is, I don't know how many of you know that we have a memorial garden outside here. These stones are a garden of memory for those, and there are some ashes that have been buried there as well. And so it's a way that we remember, we've connected with the past, and it's very special to us. So I want to invite if any of the little ones want to join me, I'm going to grab a few leaves from there and bring them here. And I'd like people to know that Memorial Garden is here for all of us. So if you ever are here, whether there's anybody else here or not, and you want to hang out back there, it's a place of memory, a place to just be in the role of generations. Maybe you know some of the people who are listed on the names there, or maybe you don't, but you're very, very welcome in our Garden of Memory. It's for all of us. So anyone who'd like to gather
Thank you. Thank you for bringing that beauty from outside within and bringing that beauty inside without. Now we've got a reading in the spirit of, and it's a reading about how we're still connected with those who have died and they still walk with us. So this is by Robert Orr.
They still walk with us. They are not gone who passed beyond the clasp of hand, out from the strong embrace, but they are but come so close. We need not grope with hands, nor look to see, nor try to catch the sound of feet. They have put off their shoes softly to walk by day, within our thoughts to tread at night our dream-led paths of sleep. They are not lost who find the sunset gate, the goal of all their fateful years. Not lost are they who reach the summit of their climb, the peak above the clouds and storms. They are not lost who find the light of sun and stars and God. They are not dead who live in hearts they leave behind, in those whom they have blessed, in lives alight again, and shall live through the years, eternal life, and grow each day more beautiful. As time declares their good, forgets the rest, and proves their immortality.
They are not gone, they are still with us. At this point, we will sing our children out. You'll go to your classes, but we wish you a very happy Halloween and delight sharing this time with you. As you leave this friendly place, love give light to every face. May this kindness which you learn light your hearts till you return. We continue this time of memory and reflection, and this time when the veil between the living and the dead is thin and memory is poignant and vulnerable. Again, we have a reading from our own poet in residence, or one of our poets in residence, about Bobby Katz. Oh, I thought I emailed you. Do you want to read it? Yes. No, as soon as I have a thought.
Thanks. Elegy for Joshua, who was my son and loved the autumn more than any season. Never, yes, never again to touch his hand. Never to answer the phone and hear his voice. Never to share an afternoon of Bach, a late night of jazz, not seldom, never. Never to answer the phone and hear his voice, his visits, vivid dreams. Then even dreams stopped, not seldom, never. His body reduced to ashes in a blue cardboard box, a small box. His visits, vivid dreams, then even dreams stopped. When loss becomes unbearable, I still beg for a dream. His body reduced to ashes in a blue cardboard box, a small box. He who had once filled boundless space in my consciousness. When loss becomes unbearable, I still beg for a dream, never to share an afternoon of Bach, a late night of jazz. He who had once filled boundless space in my consciousness, never, yes, never again to touch his hand.
Let us pray. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, we remember. We take the time this morning to remember all those whose presence in our lives give us the life we know as our own. We remember and we are flooded again with feelings of love, sorrow, pain, as well as joy and blessed memory. Through our feelings, all our feelings, the dead come a little nearer. We pray for the strength to go on when it feels that a part of us is missing. We pray for the healing that includes the past in its embrace. We keep the dead in our hearts this hour and beyond. May they be of blessed memory. I invite you, if you wish, in this space or to say it at home on Zoom, to speak the name of loved ones into the silence now, if you wish.
Christine Archambault.
These names are holy to us, as are their bearers. Their presence made our lives more beautiful. Their memory makes our lives ever more meaningful with every passing year. Let us also be mindful of the living. May the example of the honored dead inspire us to live lives worthy of our transient, to make the most of our shimmering moments in the sun. May the awareness of death bring us to the fullness of life. The memory of the dead, their continued presence in our lives, may it remind us that we do not walk alone. Blessed be. Amen. Close this time of memory. We now have a performance by the choir. These are words by Ethel Rosenberg. When she was in prison, she composed these words, and this performance was created out from those, arranged from that, based on an English folk tune. Earth shall smile. May we know sorrow, may we know joy, for both are gateways to love. May we know hope, may we know meaning as gateways to life. We will take our offering in a moment. Before we do, we have one new member I'd like to welcome, and she's already been very involved because she was in our choir this morning, a wonderful, creative soul, and very involved in this congregation and living UU values. So I'd like to welcome Lydia McCoy, and welcome officially. Thank you for joining your strength to ours, and we're delighted. Our offering this morning goes to Harambe, which is a cultural center and an organization that also runs the African Burial Ground on Clinton Street in Kingston. So we've been delighted in October and honored, deeply honored, to share our offering with Harambe. You can give at home or here via the offering plate or on the website or the QR code, or you can send a check to the congregation. Thank you for all you bring to this congregation. This congregation would not exist except as a gathering of gifts. So thank you. And for our offertory, we again will turn to the wonderful music of Jelly Roll Morton. This is Creepy Feeling, performed by Cat. for all your gifts you bring to this place. Gifts of financial support, gifts of the Spirit, they are all welcome here. Cassie Ruggiero was afraid. She hadn't noticed she was afraid, not at first. She felt something, but she thought it might be indigestion from the packet of mini donuts she knew she shouldn't buy from the gas station, the packet she knew she shouldn't eat every single one of, and then proceeded to eat every single one of them while waiting in the car for her daughter to finish her gymnastics lesson. "Mom, why didn't you save any for me?" her daughter asked upon seeing the empty wrapper. But Cassie was quick with the rejoinder. "Oh yeah, kiddo? How many of your Halloween candy are you planning on saving for me?" Tracy smiled at her mom for that one. But Cassie's belly was fine. This was something deeper. An uneasiness that rattled around in her like the lingering aftermath of an electric shock. October 31st, Halloween 2022, and Cassie, somewhat unusually, was alone in her own home. Tracy got back from gymnastics and promptly raced out to the Woo's house so she could go trick-or-treating with Grace and all of their sprightly friends, all dressed up and adorned with fake blood and glitter, going out into their evening as an assortment of zombie cheerleaders, pirate ghosts, and in Tracy's case, the animated rotting corpse of a unicorn. The girl always did have a rather creative taste for the macabre. Jack, meanwhile, was at a party that he swore would be completely devoid of beers. "God, Mom, why would you even ask that? You know I'm reliable." "Reliable? Jack, you're 16. But Cassie didn't say that last part out loud because that was unfair, if true. Her sweetie, Dinah, was out walking the dogs. A long walk out on the gunks. Dinah was most emphatically not a Halloween person, which had been a bit of a surprise to Cassie back in the day that Dinah didn't do Halloween because Di dressed up nice to fancy dress when they were younger. But she always said she didn't like the forced nature of the whole Halloween commercialized thing. And she had had a bad experience once that was probably racism and definitely gross incivility. Cassie respected Di's choice. And Di gave Cassie free roam to do Halloween up with the kids, like the time they all dressed up as musketeers, but she wasn't feeling it this year somehow. Afraid. Now, what on earth was she afraid of? She didn't have any real enemies. No one was threatening her. Well, not unless she turned on the radio. There are enemies galore out there, like some awful slasher flick. At every turn and every window, homophobes and racists and generally awful monsters waiting to pounce. What did they see in being so terribly nasty? It was hard to fathom. There were other monsters too, even less human, like the number at the bottom of last month's heating bill. Cassie had always liked to think she didn't really care about money. She knew it didn't buy happiness, and yet, when she was fairly comfortable, how lucky she had been to not have to worry about it. And now, every night out at the local restaurant was like a knife in the gut. Dinah said it was fine. She could support the both of them, since Cassie had left that awful job. But Cassie knew they were one calamity, one slip up, one anything away from bankruptcy. Cassie felt guilty and small just thinking about it. And Cassie was afraid too for the climate and the rainforest and the coral reef was, oh, stop! Kathy got up from her desk and looked out the window at the world near dusk. She hoped Dinah would be back soon. Not that she was scared of the dark. Cassie was a night owl, comforted by it. She was just a little lonely all of a sudden. The table underneath the window was home to a cactus that they had picked up from a holiday in Nogales. It was withering a little bit, yellowish brown around the edges. How bad at gardening do you have to be to murder a cactus? Cassie thought to herself. But what really caught her eye was the framed note card that was propped against the cactus pot. It was a little framed inspirational quote attributed to Dr. Martin Luther King. Fear knocked on the door. Faith answered. There was no one there. Dinah's friend Raina had given them the note card. Neither Cassie nor Dinah were what we would call church-going folks. No, we're not really religious at all. But Raina was a good friend, so they had hung on to the present. Cassie wondered what it meant. Fear knocked, faith answered. There was no one there. Would belief in God take away all her fears? Cassie doubted it. Even if it did, God as a security blanket held little appeal to her at this age. She wanted nothing to do with the fate of the hate mongers on the radio, that was for sure. No, it wasn't faith that Cassie was looking for, not exactly. Not some magic wand to wave at her fear and poof, it disappeared, not unless the pollution in the coral reef disappeared right with it. Maybe it was courage. But courage at 43 is what exactly? When she was a teenager, Cassie used to go on the biggest, scariest roller coasters she could find. She and her best friend stood in line for an hour, twice one day, to go on the Death Tongue Express, which featured 3 loop-de-loops and a fall that was steeper and quicker than the Dow Jones on a Friday. She loved that rush. She and Gail would yell at the top of their lungs all through the ride. Heck, she'd go on it again now, given the chance. Who knows? The effects of perimenopause had surprised her before. Maybe enhanced excitement on amusement park rides was one change she hadn't learned about yet. Fear knocked on the door. Faith answered. Cassie almost laughed out loud, thinking about the Death Tongue Express. And Gail, where was her friend Gail these days? She had known at 15 there was nothing really to fear in that ride. But that was before the mortgage. Oh, come on, Cassie, it's Halloween. Snap out of it. Maybe a thought struck her. Cassie had heard all about this Day of the Dead stuff. How do you say it? Dia de los Muertos. She had seen all the decorations in the shops, the pretty skulls. She hadn't bought anything. She wasn't Mexican and worried about engaging in cultural misappropriation. And besides, $15 for a faux plastic skull? Come on. Even for the Hudson Valley, that was a bit much. But now she wondered if it wasn't being disrespectful. She grabbed a photo of her parents, the one that always rested on the top of the little bookshelf by the door, and put it on the table. She found an old candle in a kitchen drawer and stuck it there and lit it. She wasn't really into candles, but it felt right. And there they were, John and Stacy, smiling back at her. Both gone for years now at this point. Cassie was an orphan. She never used the word to describe herself. She was an adult when her dad and then her mom passed into the night. She knew she was lucky compared to many. Still, holding the frame in her hands, something raw and sad and angry and, in a strange way, almost welcome, paid her a visit, perched on her like a black cat. Orphan. She had lost both her parents. It was awfully hard. And she was still here. She was doing okay. And her parents were, well, they spoke to her, and not just on Halloween. Her mom was still on her to tidy her room, but it wasn't just the nagging. She could hear her mom's voice saying, Cassie always finds a way. She said that a lot, her mom, even at parent-teacher conferences. And in spite of her mild embarrassment, Cassie felt a sunbeam of pride whenever her mother affirmed her like this. And Cassie's dad had his catchphrases too, though mostly drawn from the world of NFL football. She had once joked, how many second halves are there, Dad? Because every 2 minutes you tell me there's always a second half. But even more than his voice, what Cassie carried around with her was her dad's benevolent eyes, his look that spoke preciousness without words, his ears always open and glad to receive her like an empty wine glass or a Super Bowl or something. Sorry, Dad, I don't know football. What else? She had plenty of snapshots of her brother, the little dork. He was still a dork at 39. But you couldn't put the living on a memory table, surely. Or maybe you could. She missed him over in California, so far away. But it might be bad luck. Yeah, she looked at the picture, gave it a kiss. and a jovial middle finger. She could hear him ribbing her about that. And then put it to one side, not on the table, but still in view. Her grandparents, well, she'd include them, of course. And even Grandma Sophia, who was amazingly still hanging on at the convalescent home, in body anyway. Grandma Sophia, so old now. And yet she seemed older than she was even when she was young, but not in a negative way. Why is it always so negative to be old? Just that she carried the old country with her. Though born in America to immigrant parents, every recipe had a story from Sicily. And when Grandma cooked, Cassie was on a sun-baked plaza just outside Palermo, the olive and the lemon trees within reach. And she had courage. God, did Grandma Sophia have courage. Even at the senior center, Grandma had a resoluteness, resolute fierceness around the eyes, a sense that she knew who she was, where she came from. And her grandfather was Sophia's rock, a rock that Cassie learned over the years that she could rest on too. Grandpa Dan now, on her mother's side. In the photo, Dan pointed at the camera and almost winking. Dan was not from anywhere, really, except where he was. I guess he was Irish, English, German, but mostly he was just wherever he was, life of the party. He was there. He was far from perfect, but he was there. Presente, that word occurred to Cassie. That wasn't Italian. It's what they said in Latin American countries, wasn't it? When you feel the presence of someone on the other side. Presente. Cassie lit another candle. Presente, Grandpa Dan. And presente, Grandma Phyllis, who was also not Spanish. Phyllis was a Choctaw, which meant that Cassie really was 1/4 Native American. But after the age of about 25, she stopped telling people that most of the time. Too many times of being told she was exotic or not really Indian, or being asked why she couldn't speak the language, or worse. Dinah had always encouraged Cassie to get in touch with that side of her family heritage, maybe go to a powwow in Oklahoma or something. But Cassie had demurred. Now she felt so disconnected, with her grandma so long gone, maybe not so long gone. Her grandma's story was hers somehow. It had to be. She needed to keep her in her bones, to walk around with her, not let it go. She promised to ask her brother about their grandma when she saw him next. Presente, Grandma Phyllis. I carry you with me. Cassie actually said that part out loud and surprised herself with it. She felt good. She kept going. Presente, Stephen, her mentor and friend's photo came next on that table. And then presente, Mrs. Garvey, presente, Fran and Lorraine. The pictures went on one by one. Presente, David Bowie, who always meant a lot to her. Glad she held on to that CD cover now. Rummaging through photographs, lighting candles, Cassie found herself in a reverie, which was the furthest thing from lonely. Suddenly, she was gripped by a rush of some heady combination of wistfulness and gratitude. Thinking about all that her life had been up to now, what a life she had been privileged to have, what people it contained. She had been touched by the strength of Gwen Keeley. She had gotten to know the tender heart of little William back at school, Tim, the Toya, the Wetzel family, so many marvelous influences. Presente, presente, presente. She carried them all. They were all not far off. Knock, knock. There was a knock, a real one, at the door. And Cassie Ruggiero found she was not the least bit afraid. She knew who she was and from whence she came. Not completely. How dull life would be if there was nothing more to find out about oneself or one's story, but enough to strengthen her back, put the air back in her lungs, and send her smiling to the door. She knew that knock. She didn't know who it belonged to. She didn't know the person at the other end of it. Her family all had keys, of course, but she knew it was the knock of children. She opened the door. Before her were 3 children of various heights, a vampire and a witch and a ghost. Trick or treat, they mumbled. It was Cassie's habit on Halloween occasions like this one. She would often gush to the kids, "Ooh, I'm so frightened. You're so scary." But tonight there was no fear left in her. So she looked each one in the eyes, or the mask where their eyes would be approximately. And she said, You are all so delightful. Have a great Halloween. And then she passed out the Twix and the Starburst chews. And as she passed them out, she felt that her hand was drenched somehow in the warm Sicily sun and was lifted ever so slightly and almost imperceptibly, but there, by the collective strength of the Choctaw Nation. Anyway, the trick-or-treating had started, and her family, the ones who were not already with her right now, would be home soon too. What a good night it was. And she, Cassie, was here for it. Presente, Cassie Ruggiero. Presente, grazie, and good night. Fear knocked on the door, but Cassie, all that was Cassie, all that made her Cassie Ruggiero, answered that door, and it was just fine. Amen. I invite us to sing together a song of feeling that presence. Number 348 in the gray hymnals, or the lyrics will be on your screens. Guide my feet, as we think of the ancestors and think of all those who are with us now. Friends, we have known some good people, and we live on a beautiful earth. We are so blessed to get to live this. For all the sorrows and the pain, and we open our hearts to them, we know what a blessing it is to be here. Let us cherish those who have gone before and cherish those who will always be a part of our lives. And let us live out boldly in love, in comradeship, for justice, for what's right in this world, because we owe it to one another, we owe it to those who have died, and we owe it to that song in our hearts. Let us always live out that song as authentically as we can with every night and day that we are here. So now we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we
Thank you so much to Catherine and her choir, and Bruce and Kathy and Kristen and Kathy. Thank you so much. I hope you'll stay for a community here in this space or on our breakout rooms. And have a wonderful day. Happy Halloween.